Good afternoon. This is Channing Porter from Literacy Development 6400. Today I'm here with Dr. Michael to discuss multimodal reading in our classroom. Hi, Dr. Michael.
Hi, it's good to be with you.
So, Dr. Michael, can you tell us a little bit about how long you've been teaching, what grades, and some of your experience in education?
I'd be happy to. I have been teaching this is my 26th year teaching. I have taught every grade from 6 to 12. I've taught English and different writing courses such as creative writing, contemporary writing. I've done reading courses, ACT prep, just kind of a host of electives that go along with our discipline. And I've taught in both the public and the private school setting.
Awesome. So I want to talk to you today about multimodal literacy, particularly traditional print text versus text on technology, whether that's iPads, laptops, so on and so forth. So
that's such a good topic for us, especially at this time in education,
right,
where we're switching over to reading from our technology.
Mm-hmm. Especially here at Whites Creek, I feel like we're in this kind of, crossroads. And so some of the reading in class kind of is very relevant to some of the things that we're trying to get done here at Whites Creek in
Absolutely.
our own ALA classrooms.
The one thing that I would say that hinders us to a degree is the availability of the technology.
And lack of Wi-Fi.
Right.
So one of our readings, it was by David O'Brien and Scott Voss, and they say that we are at a crossroads of traditional print literacy and multimodal literacy with the rapid transition from print to digital text. Where do you see this happening in our classrooms this year?
Well, one thing that I would say is a driving factor with this in terms of our particular school is the fact that we don't have access to a lot of the print media. Mm-hmm. So it is a necessity more than a choice sometimes in having that electronic piece rather than just a book that they can hold in their hands.
So how does that affect our, student literacy if we're not necessarily consciously making the choice to switch over to digital text, whereas it's more of a force? Do you think that
I have a couple different thoughts on that. First of all, I think that the students really have not embraced reading on electronic media yet. I think it's something that we should help them do because I think it's becoming more and more broad spectrum as far as what is available to us.
Right.
So there's a bit of resistance there. And I also think that the teachers' willingness to change over, it's always difficult to get a teacher to change anything they do. Because especially if they've, in their experience, it's worked. And I think that, if our educators are more open to those changes and to, moving our kids into a new space, I think that really it would be a much more beneficial thing for us.
Right. I think so too. And that kind of actually leads me into the next idea about O'Brien and Voss asking the question, what is gained or lost in terms of student engagement and comprehension and moving from these traditional print texts to the affordances of digital multimodal text and their environment. So I think you kind of touched upon this earlier. We do struggle as teachers with student engagement and literacy to begin with, but definitely when we're trying to switch over. Do you think that if teachers make that choice to use multimodal literacy appropriately, do you think that could potentially increase student engagement?
I really do. I've used some programs to work on like PBLs and things like that. For example, Symbaloo brings in different text pieces to help the students kind of investigate what they're learning about, and it gives you a place to kind of harness all that in one area. The one thing that I would say is I think that not having the book in their hands, I think they're still reticent to give up that control. Right. I feel like it's a feeling of control for them to have the book in their hand. and turn the page and see the print in a time-space kind of way.
Right.
I mean, it's silly, but it really makes a difference to them still. And I think we have got to encourage them as learners to be comfortable with that online, that electronic feel, and be confident with their ability to transfer their knowledge from the page to the screen.
And then especially if we're trying to get them to annotate.
Annotation.
It's definitely difficult when we don't have iPads or anything they could write with.
Although I would say that if we did things, like completely electronically, we could provide them with those options. It would just take so much time to do it by yourself. And I think what we really lack is a community of teachers who
are on the same page.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And who will be willing to donate their time. For example, you and I have been working on this Macbeth unit, and it took me ages to get that No Fear Macbeth into a digital format.
Right.
That could be printed out, especially for our IEP students who really need that physical support. And we've talked about the fact that it makes just the time it takes to do those things really makes a difference, because we already have so much on our plates.
Yeah, and then also going through, I haven't really looked, but I haven't noticed a lot of district level training in terms of incorporating this technology and that support at the higher level. So I think it's also difficult when we have to take on those roles ourselves when we already have so many other things we have to get done.
Yeah, and you have to have the hardware, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we don't district-wide have the technology that we need to really teach our students in a way that's relevant to today's society.
I completely agree.
We don't do a very good job of getting them literate in a way electronically that they would be ready for college.
I completely agree.
I think that it's our job as literacy teachers to try to push that for sure, because much of our information, is conveyable.
Right. No,
we can transfer those things easily and work with them in electronic ways. And I think it would open up such a big world for them in terms of like projects and things.
No, I think so too, especially with our school's huge push for academy-wide PBLs.
Right.
I feel like we definitely, and we, there are the grants available, but then I feel like one of our biggest battles, you correct me if I'm wrong, is just Wi-Fi. Because just of the location of our school, we don't have strong enough Wi-Fi, so how do we get...
It's not reliable,
No.
And so you end up with one class who, was not able to get on the internet, and now you're a day behind, and
exactly.
It makes it difficult, but certainly not insurmountable.
Right.
It just has to be something that we actually care about. I mean, because unless we do it purposely, there's no point in trying to do it at all.
Right. Just kind of switching gears a little bit in terms of some literary theories. Two of the theories we talked about was Adams versus Goodman, so that bottom-up versus top-down approach. And I think we could both agree that we would both side with Goodman in terms of we agree more with the top-down approach with teaching literacy. Recently, we used this when teaching the learning curve with the 10th graders in IFL. So before we even dove into the text, we looked at videos of central line placement, and we had them experience some hands-on activities with mastery. Do you find that this top-down approach, particularly with video and other forms of literacy, do you think that creates student engagement more so than last year when we taught the same unit?
Yeah, I definitely feel like, and of course this is something that goes way back for me, in terms of learning how learners learn.
Yeah.
And the truth is that I've been doing this for a long time. When it's up to me to make the plan for how we're going to approach something, it makes the most sense to me to get a student engaged in the topic first, and then to provide them with a more broad approach to it, so that they don't have to worry with the details, the first time through, etc.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I feel like last year I almost went bottom up because I almost followed the IFL too literally, and I think that was where I went wrong. I'm not sure what you did last year with the same unit, but I approached it completely differently this year when we co-planned it.
Yeah, I think really I brought kind of my flavor for that in terms of the top-down. I've always found it to be more successful with students. They feel more confident with the text when you do that.
Especially at the high school level, right?
For sure.
So my final question is, we discussed Louise Rosenblatt's learning theory of readers forming relationships with the text as they read. So this kind of give and take approach, instead of just students getting all this information, they're also giving as well while they read. As a teacher, how do you structure texts to help students form these connections?
Structure texts in what respect? How are you? What do you mean there?
So I guess what I mean is, how do you set up text-dependent questions or your units in terms of purposefully getting students to form a relationship with these texts as they read?
One of the biggest things that I try to do before we even approach the text is to draw themes and ask questions that are relevant to their lives. For example, with the Macbeth, we started off with the stations,
right,
that had the themes kind of labeled on those stations, and we had conversations about things like gender roles, and when you can get a student to think about it in terms of their own life first,
right.
So I think developing questions and probing the bigger aspects of the literature before you nail down the smaller details of the text is really important for them to gain engagement.
Right, and I think that's where, at least when we plan and we're forming these activities and questions, I think student engagement and forming those relationships are at the forefront of our planning. Yeah,
because without that, you may as well just hand them a bunch of definitions,
right?
Because that's as much engagement as you're going to get without.
That's not literacy.
No, you have to build that bridge, and you have to lead them into building that bridge. Really, you've got to give them the tools and the materials, but you have to get them to build that bridge.
Yeah. So for further inquiry, something I'm looking to explore this year and just down the road in my career is how to use multimodal text to further yield student ownership and engagement in learning. So I guess to top of this whole conversation off, that's kind of direction where I want to head with using, whether it's graphic novels or videos, film, books on tape, anything like that. I'm trying to get more student ownership with their learning, because I think that's going to increase engagement.
I think that's a wonderful idea. Well, I'm old enough that you had to tell me what a graphic novel was the other day.
When I say comic book, I think it's...
Well, yeah. but the term, is not really in my vocabulary at this point yet.
Right.
So, I enjoy watching your enthusiasm, because it helps me learn. So as you engage with this information, it helps the people around you too, and I appreciate.
Oh, thank you.
Your input and help with me.
Well, and we're lucky enough to be in a career where there's always room for growth, and we're always going to learn, whether we like it or not.
It's necessary.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Michael.
It was nice talking with you.
Thank you very much.
iPhone.